be discussing trick-or-treating alternatives and Halloween festivities that are inclusive and fun. So let's get started. So first up is exploring pumpkins. So what we did first was we read some books about pumpkins, and we had all the students look at the pumpkin. We described the features, letting them categorize what components makes a pumpkin so they can, differentiate it between something like an apple. So then you can do pumpkin bowling. And the way that you can do pumpkin bowling is obviously you have your pumpkin and you can get empty bottles or plastic cups, and you can even decorate them so they look like, monsters or aliens or jack-o'-lanterns, and make it fun that way. And it's a really great activity because you can adapt it with setting it up on the table for wheelchair users. You can use an adaptive or an assistive device for bowling if you're lucky enough to have that in your classroom, and for other students you can also just roll it on the ground. So a really great thing about pumpkin bowling is that it can also be a learning opportunity to practice problem solving. So if you have a few different shapes and sizes of pumpkins, you can ask students to choose which pumpkin are you going to use to bowl, and they can test it. Will the long one roll better? Will a small one be easier for me to push, or do they go straight for the big one? And if you do a few rounds of this, eventually you're hoping that they will start kind of leaning towards one that's a little bit easier for them. So giving maybe two choices at a time, giving them the agency to choose and to explore that activity. So then we can do sensory exploration inside the pumpkin, which is a big favorite of one of the students that I support. She loves the messy and the gooey and all of that. So sensory exploration was a big hit for her. But for some students where sensory exploration of a pumpkin's guts is not exciting for them, there is an alternative, and you can take a baggie, a Ziploc, and put pumpkin guts inside of it. If you'd like to make it even more fun, you can use a permanent marker and you can make a jack-o'-lantern space in it and have the student explore it that way. You can also have the students pick out all of the pumpkin seeds out of it, which is great fine motor skill right there. And you guys can bake it later, and it can be something tasty. Once your student or child has emptied all of the pumpkin guts, then it's the pumpkin carving, which still can be done even if trick-or-treating is canceled. Now, a great way that you can do this is you can actually get cookie cutters, and there's actually cookie cutters out there that will shape like a triangle and make like the mouth and all of that for pumpkin carving. So you can use that. Another alternative to that is using pumpkin, they're like little pumpkin pegs, and they already have like the eyes and the mouth and the nose, and students can just push those right in and make whatever face they'd like. And then you have a nice scary or funny looking jack-o'-lantern. It's actually a great thing to have because you can use it for an science experiment. This experiment is quite simple. All you need is a small gutted out pumpkin, dish soap, 20 volume hydrogen peroxide liquid, dry use packet, food coloring, a glass bowl, and safety goggles. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put 2 tablespoons of dish soap in your small pumpkin. Then you're gonna do a half a cup of hydrogen peroxide and swish it around. Then in a separate bowl, you are going to put 3 tablespoons of warm water and the packet of yeast and stir that about for 30 seconds. Then you're going to put the yeast mixture into the small pumpkin and then watch the reaction happen. So you're expecting a thick foam of color to come out. So next up is baking cookies. And before you're like, hey, I think we can handle that, all I'm suggesting is that for students and your child who might require visual aids as a form of their communication, I'm suggesting that you make a visual recipe. Now, this is quite simple. All you have to do is take pictures of your different ingredients that you'll be using and the measuring tools that you'll also be using. This can be done where you can print it and put them next to each other, or you can make this on an iPad and make it a visual recipe on there. Now this is great because not only does it allow your child to be part of the experience of baking and really understanding what's going into this, you're also giving them the opportunity to practice sequencing and to learn how to follow instructions. So you can ask them and prompt them to say, okay, what's supposed to be going in next into the mixing bowl? And you can show them 2 different ingredients, show them the visual schedule, and get them to pick which one is coming next. So great opportunity, and it's a yummy, delicious treat after. So next up is my favorite activity. It's an activity that I did last year with the classroom that I support, and it is a spooky sensory story. So to start it off, we made the classroom spooky. So we're getting students to help decorate the classroom, and then we created a fort. Obviously, making a fort this year in the classroom won't allow for that 2 meter space between each student, so just making the classroom spooky and turning down the lights low with some spooky music will set the atmosphere perfectly. For at home, this is a great time to build a spooky fort. So up next is that you're gonna get your ingredients, your spooky sensory items. So what I did is in each bowl, I put different items to match the ingredients that were in my story. So there's teeth, there's squishy eyeballs that you find at the dollar store, or you can use olives for eyeballs. There's things like using corn husks to be hair, and using instant noodles to be, if you just make it with partial water, you can make that the brains. So I'll list everything in the description of things that I use for each of those ingredients for the story. Now for classrooms, to make this more hygienic, you're going to make smaller bowls for each student. Or you can have each student try only one item or feel one item. So then what you do is that you turn down those lights, put on that spooky music, and you tell a story. So this is a story that I use, and I will put the story down in the comments. There might possibly be some stories online, but this is the one that I created for my classroom. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your comments and what you are going to be doing this Halloween or what has worked in the past. I'd love to hear. And remember, subscribe and give a like or a share, and I'll see you guys next Saturday. Bye!